I think the providers that we're using for the CCMP program, they did a good job of looking at who they already had on their caseload that would probably qualify for this, and they've done some outreach to those individuals and kind of got them re-engaged. They're already working, or they were just getting ready to work. So those are the folks that I think were the easy enrollments. Now we're going to start getting into the challenging part where we have to not only convince people to be in the wage pathway, but convince them to also participate in the CCMEP program, which may not be, we had a captive audience before. We knew who we had, and they already had made a connection with those caseworkers. And so going forward, that's going to be the challenge, is getting individuals interested that aren't already part of the system.
Yeah. So I think Jim said that there were currently 13 people, and the target was around 30. Do you anticipate any challenges hitting that 30 number? Or whatever the target is?
Yeah, I mean, I think just from the standpoint of they're also kind of balancing the wage pathway enrollment with just running the full CCMEP program, since they have to be in both. They can't enroll 15 more people and be able to manage with their regular CCMEP budget without exiting some other folks as well. I mean, just capacity-wise, I think that's going to be a challenge for them. Now, if they're able to get the folks that are okay, so if they can get some of the folks that weren't in the wage pathway to start with to switch over to that, but I don't know what's going on in those individuals' lives, if they're ready for employment, if they're not ready for employment. So I think that'll probably be the bigger challenge, is just, this is one piece of the puzzle. What's it going to do capacity-wise to the rest of the program?
So the main question that I have is, I think it's a philosophical question as much as anything else. So what's at the middle of wage pathways is incentives. That's the tool, and it's intended to promote career advancement and earnings advancement for people. So part of the conversation that we had this morning with the AHOBE folks was that they feel like incentives work for some people but not for others. They can motivate people who, in some ways, they can motivate people who are already motivated. But on the other hand, they can be an important tool that potentially could be used to interest more people and hopefully influence them to pursue some beneficial behaviors. So my philosophical question for you is, what's your opinion of incentives? I mean, are they a tool that can be used to promote advancement? And what's the sort of route to using it as a tool?
If you're looking at advancement from the standpoint of, like, you get a job and then you get a better job and then you get a better job, I think that the incentives are a way to get people to attach to the labor force long enough, because they want to see something in it for them immediately. We're dealing, with a culture, not just 14 to 24-year-olds, older adults as well, that are so used to just, if you want to know something, you look it up. If you want to, call somebody, you call them on their cell phone. And if they don't answer their cell phone, there's something wrong with them, because who doesn't answer their cell phone, So I think that getting folks to see that, look, if you get this, there's this instant gratification at the 1 month mark and at the 2 month mark, or whatever the time frames are. That helps people see immediate turnaround, and that gives them what they need to be able to progress up the wage scale. I don't think that the benchmarks that we put in for wage advancement, I don't think those are necessarily achievable in the skill set that we're starting folks off with without some type of additional training beforehand. I think to say, okay, you're going to start, we're going to get you a job, we're going to, hopefully get you in somewhere that's paying at least $10 an hour. that's great, but to be able to hit that percentage increase without some additional training, I don't think that's feasible.
Yeah. Okay. And so, what are the?
And I think that varies by location too, geographic location. You know, if we have in this community, folks don't have a hard time finding a summer job. But to keep that job year round, or to get a job that does provide year round employment, to me, that is something to incentivize and not just a wage dollar per hour increase.
Yeah.
Because there's a whole subculture in this area that's kind of what they build their life around is I work ridiculous hours in the summertime, and then I don't work all winter, and then I work ridiculous hours in the summertime, and so they've got this kind of choppy employment. But you know, there's a whole, like I said, subculture that's kind of built around that, and to get folks to want to leave that's where I think that incentive would come in handy to maybe kind of restructure and look at what the local economics are like to get folks to change that kind of way of looking at things.
And what are the sort of, I mean, what needs to be done to change somebody's mind other than the, you know, so the incentive's one thing, but it has to be, I think, surrounded by conversations and services and, you know, other sorts of information provision, encouragement. What's the sort of, is there what should be wrapped around the incentives to encourage people to change their behaviors in a way like what you're talking about?
$1 million question.
It's the $1 million question, literally. Honestly, I think that is the question that's at the middle of this project.
Yeah.
We have incentives. They're great for people. Like, who wouldn't want that extra money? I would love that if I could participate in that kind of a program.
Yeah.
But given that this is supposed to be around encouraging people to pursue some sort of beneficial career track, how do you get them to do it?
I think it goes beyond just with that person that you're talking to. I think you also have to look at who is in their kind of circle of influence, and if it's kind of like getting people interested in going back into advanced manufacturing. If their entire lives they've heard you don't want to do that because that's dirty work and you know, you get laid off and that's all they've heard, they don't want to go that direction. And if they do decide to go that direction, they're going to get a lot of pushback from their family members or their friends. It's the same kind of conversation when it comes to like military enlistment. If you don't come from a background that supports that, and that's what you want to do, then you're not going to get the support you need to be successful there. Same thing with here. If you're coming from a background where that's the lifestyle, then we need to figure out how to get to these folks that are the influencing factors in those individuals' lives and show what the benefit is of changing that. Along with trying to educate the person that's sitting across the desk from you. How we get these folks the rest of the picture, I don't know the answer to that. But I think that's really a big part of it, because to say, okay, all my family's ever done is work seasonal jobs and you know, we've been off all winter and that's just how it always has been, to suddenly leave that behind is, or not even having worked before and suddenly leave that behind, it's a lot of uncertainty. It's a lot of, I don't know what to do next. It's a lot of kind of animosity. Oh, you've got the money at Christmas time. Well, I guess you're buying all the Christmas presents this year. It's, you know, how do you prepare for that kind of drama that you're going to have if that's what you're leaving behind without bringing everybody else with you?
What's your prediction for what the data is going to show at the end of Wage Pathways? Is it going to work? Is it going to help people?
I think Jim's right. The folks that are getting the benefits, the incentives, are sticking it out. I think that they are probably the folks that would have stuck it out anyway. But I think you're going to be able to get, I don't know about the percentage wise, but I think you're going to be able to get a few more that maybe couldn't get through, because even when you're starting off working, you still have to figure out, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to be able to manage this? And you
Right.
still have to have kind of that support system that I think these guys provide if individuals aren't getting it from home. But the incentive is going to be that extra little piece that's going to get them over the rough spots.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think we'll get an increase in what we would have had.
Something on the margins.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the most part, this evaluation inquiry is focused on how people get into the program, and then start using the program. Later, in a few months, we'll have an inquiry that's built around once people have a job and they're working, how are they using the incentives? If they're using them, in what ways are they continuing to interact with the staff to sort of promote advancement? But I want to ask about that, the latter part, because I think it's going to help me. It's going to help us think about planning for the next one. Is the program changing the way that staff interacts with participants? Are they having different conversations, or are they following up in a different way?
I think they're looking at follow-up a little bit differently, and that they've got something to keep people engaged after they find employment. A lot of times once the person gets the job, they're like, I'm out, done, you don't need to be in my business anymore. But this is a way that they're able to keep them engaged.
The pay stubs and you need to report back.
Yeah, let me know how it's going, and this is what's waiting for you if you do, kind of thing. I think also maybe on the front door side of things, we're looking at folks that it's another way to get them to enroll in the program. So I'll give you, for example, we have a young man that we were working with a business to do an OJT with them, and in talking with them, realized that he was of age that he would be eligible as an adult as well as under the CCMP and the Wage Pathway Program. And so, we said, okay, you're going to need extra equipment, or you're going to need, this is something we can help you with CCMP for. And, if this is something that you're really thinking this is going to be your career, we can help you with this Wage Pathway Program and get you, I think they just bought a house or something. And so that'll help you with some of the initial startup things that you have when you move into a new place. So it also kind of is one more recruiting tool, too, that helps.
Okay. Has the, my third question is around employers. So are employers aware of wage pathways, or what's the sort of way that you're interacting with companies around this?
We work with our economic development agency, so when they're out and about meeting with employers on their retention and industry visits, they're talking about the program. We have a business just back behind here that they are doing a kind of a social economic recruiting strategy where they're trying to target individuals that are coming from low income, barriers to employment. They're trying to target those groups of populations to work at their facility. And so one of the things that we did with them is, okay, let's make this another recruiting tool. You don't pay cash bonuses, but if you hire folks within this bracket, let's work with them, and we'll provide the kind of job coach support stuff as well as provide them with that cash bonus. So we'll kind of help them with that employer's recruitment piece.
Is that a long-standing relationship with the?
We've had a relationship with the employer to do testing with them, but this was just within like the last month or so. We said, hey, let's try and partner together with
Interesting. Do you think there might be more of that in the community?
They're doing it particularly because of a product line that they bid on. That was one of the requirements for the product line, is to do some type of social investment. And so that's how they're targeting it. That's particularly why they came to us and said, hey, we need help with this particular piece.
We need to figure this out.
And
Interesting. Another question I have is around the administration of the project. From your point of view, is it going okay working with the state? Are there any issues with contracting or money?
Not with the money. data entry, data tracking system. We started off with kind of some rough spots where things weren't programmed in yet, and we had to kind of work outside of it, and then we had to do it again. And so I think just making sure that what program folks think are going to be happening in the system is actually programmed in the system when it's ready to roll, and not, it seems like we get ahead of the curve and we're calling and saying, hey, it's not working. And then they say, oh, you're right, it's not working. And they've got to do a fix to make it work. Making sure that some of those kind of logistical bugs get worked out ahead of time would have been beneficial. It would have saved a couple hours.
Is it hindering the program or more of an annoyance?
It's just an annoyance.
Yeah,
It's okay, we did what we were supposed to do. We're going ahead and cutting the check to the individual, but we can't get reimbursed from the state until we get these bugs worked out, because there's no way for them. At one point, there was no way to track the bonuses, and then we'd enter it one way and figured out, okay, that's not going to work either. We've got to change this coding or this activity code or whatever. And that, it was something we worked through. Like I said, we knew going in that we were going to have like 5 or 6 people that we were going to be able to start right off the bat with. And so they became our guinea pigs. And, okay, we're ahead of the curve, but the flip side of it is we get to work the bugs out.
Yeah.
So maybe like some testing beforehand.
Yeah.
In a test environment or something. Yeah.
I heard the same. You're our second site visit. We did Ashtabula Beulah last week, and they commented similarly.
Okay.
The only question that I've gotten from the folks at ODJFS in Columbus is they're concerned about their enrollment numbers. As you know, with a grant, like hitting your enrollments is sort of like the major deliverable. And I think the program's a little low. Do you think there's the potential to expand your enrollment here? Would that be hard?
I think it would be hard without additional youth dollars, regular CCMEP youth dollars, because we're at 13, and I think we have like 30 people total in our youth programs, so that's already half of our population, roughly. So to say, okay, we're going to do 10 more,
it would be a stretch.
It does, yeah. And then it starts to call into question, just like, do they really need to be in the CCMEP program and get all the program elements? And if they do, what are you doing to the other participants that maybe need additional, more hand-holding kinds of things before they're ready for that?
Yeah. Is there any reason that somebody wouldn't participate in Wage Pathways? So if somebody's sort of coming through the channels and they, reach an eHobie career advisor, and it's an option. We've got this program, it's called Wage Pathways, you get incentives, and this is what the incentives are. Is there a reason that someone wouldn't do that?
Well, partly I think if they're dead set they want to go to post-secondary education, I think that's probably one reason. I think another reason is it just coming into the program itself. The assessment to be in a CCMEP program can be a little in your face, and that makes people uncomfortable if they're not ready to come to terms with it. Or even feel comfortable discussing personal details with somebody. If they've not had to do that in the past, it's kind of like, why are you asking me these questions?
You need to know this.
I just need to I've got this job over here, and exactly. So I think that can I understand the reasoning behind it, because, in targeting the folks that we want to target, we want to get to the folks that really need the help the most. But those folks probably weren't ready for Wage Pathway yet anyway. And so to say, okay, we're going to pull people in, hit this target goal, and they're going to be the neediest, and they're going to be job ready right now, they don't line up. You've got to kind of like check things off before you're ready to say, okay, you're ready to work 30 hours a week. And if those, with the tight time frame of the grant, those are some things that sometimes you have to work through a year before you're ready to say, okay, now you're ready to go out and be employed.
Yeah. So at this is sort of my summary question. At this stage, for you, is there a headline about wage pathways? I mean, what's sort of the central thread that you would pass along?
Well, I try to stay out of the headlines. I think that the theme here is for folks that want to go right to work, where going to school isn't really an option for them, no matter what other resources we've got for them. If going right to work and then getting your training on the job is for you, then this is a great way to do it and get recognized for the fact that you're building a good work history.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's probably the theme that we promote. Like we have a grant coming up with this year's high school graduating class where we're targeting those folks that are going to be leaving, that aren't going on to college, and really trying to get them connected to the workforce right away. So this will be something we promote to the employers.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking to the kids about it as well. It's a great way to get that need met, and knowing that a lot of these kids that are coming out of high school in this situation don't have the ability to stay at their parents' house after they turn 18. They're going to have to be on their own. There's going to be those initial like rent deposit, utility deposit, if they're going to have to purchase a vehicle or get car insurance on their own this time. Those are things that are like startup costs that they're not going to necessarily have put away, that the incentive program can help them out with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So when we come back in a few months, thinking we should. Do you think fall would be a good time frame? So what I am, my rationale for wanting to do this in the fall is that not all the sites are in the same place in terms of enrollments. Mm-hmm. Some have people enrolled and are moving full steam ahead, and some have nobody enrolled yet, and they're still like trying to get their feet under them. So having these conversations about how do you get people into the program, I think is timely.
Are they
on
the
average.
ones that are really struggling? Are they looking at their current CCMP enrollment folks, or are they looking to recruit brand new people?
I think some are like literally struggling to get contracts signed with some of their providers around.
Oh,
you
okay,
know,
just even
like,
providing the service.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And so I'm trying to sort of, on average, where are the different counties? And in a few months, I want to have a conversation around, okay, now that you've got some folks into the program and people are working, are you seeing the incentives work as a motivating factor, given the outcomes that the grant's trying to accomplish?
Right.
And then what are some of the things that you've learned about how to help people take advantage of the incentives? Do you think, the fall, is that an okay time frame for that type of conversation?
They'll have had more folks enrolled by the fall because they'll, like I said, you'll get to that point, at least for some of the retention bonuses, the first couple, you'll have some more by then.
Do you think they will have gotten into that sort of harder population?
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think probably the fall would be decent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's basically it. And we've had a great conversation with the 5 or 6 team members, and we're going to look at some files and talk to some participants.
Oh, good. Okay. I know Jim was trying to get a couple. That was the other thing we were talking about. It's like, okay, their whole point is to get them working, and now they're working. How are we going to do the same thing?
We can do it over the phone, too.
Yeah, although we did,
I did say that to him. We can do this over the phone if that's better.
We may reiterate that, and
If this is
see
tricky.
if people, because one guy, the first guy, spent all night plowing, which we're very grateful for,
right?
Getting out here. But so he's like, I don't think I can come in and do that. So, totally understandable. But it is hard to, you want people to work, right?
Right.
And then you pull them away.
The conversation I want to have with participants is around what conversations are you having on the topic of advancement, and how are you anticipating that these incentives might be helpful related to advancement? and we'll see what they say. You
Yeah.
know, I've got these things that I have to spend the money on in order to even think about.
Right.
You know.
I think also that just, and again, I get it, it's a very short time frame for the grant, but I also think it's kind of unrealistic to think that someone's going to hit that level of advancement in that short period of time.
I think it's unrealistic even for us.
That's what I was going to say. I look at my
Right?
staff
10%
here.
raise in
Yeah,
the
I look
next
at my
year.
staff here and
Right.
think, oh, that doesn't happen here.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you
It
know.
doesn't happen anywhere. It's kind of amazing, but yeah.
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 I mean, really, the only way to do that is, I think, is if you're hired, if you're hired in somewhere that has kind of a step
Yeah.
wage
Yeah.
scale, or you're jumping ship,
Right.
And that's not anything that I think we should be reinforcing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, yeah, you've got to look out for yourself, but you also have to, stay somewhere long enough to build a decent work history so that the next place you apply to doesn't go, oh, job hopper, not for me.
Right.
Do you spend much time talking with clients, if you will, about advancement in general? Or
I don't. That would be Jim's
Yeah.
crew that does that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But just the concept of advancement,
Mhm.
because it seems like the needs are so immediate. Like if
Yeah.
getting a job seems to be quite a
Right.
getting and keeping a job.
Right,
seems to be quite
exactly.
an accomplishment.
Yeah. The storyline that and if I'm mischaracterizing
No.
what I think I heard, what we heard, the storyline I think we heard this morning was around the incentives are going to be beneficial for the people that are already motivated. There are some people that will not even follow up, even though they have money sitting on the table.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that too.
And we already have a lot of conversations about how do you gain traction in a job? What are the things that you need to take care of in order to gain traction in a job? And starting the thinking towards what their longer term career goals might be. That's a conversation I think I heard that they're used to having. And so the question that we were posing to them is, okay, now that you've got incentives, these cash incentives as a tool, does that influence or change or help the conversation that you're having? And I don't think I was hearing yes.
No, I was hearing sort of the motivated will.
I was
will
hearing
be
meh.
motivated, and sort of a neutral kind of. There are people who would probably succeed without the incentives, anyways, even though they're getting the incentives, and then there are people who probably wouldn't succeed regardless of whether the incentives are there or not.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll be curious to learn from the other sites if it's sort of a similar,
Right.
Or to see if it changes.
or if it changes. Yeah. Yeah. If we, start to hear, oh, yeah, people love this. I mean, they're really sticking around because of these incentives or
Right.
something. Mhm.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay. Well, thank you.
All right. Thank you guys.
Thank you for
And
giving
so
us some time.
Do you need the room in here yet, or?
I guess I don't know where Jim has us.
I don't think I have anything scheduled in here the rest of the day. There might be a webinar this afternoon, like at 1:00.
Okay.